Welcome to the Life of Being podcast, where we talk about all things life from a healthcare perspective all around the world. I'm your host, Kelly Tan, and in each episode, we'll explore stories, science, and wisdom to help you live well, think deeper, and express life fully. Let's begin. Today, we are excited to be having Dr. Martin Harvey joining us from Melbourne, Australia. Dr. Martin is a sort of the speaker and a leader in chiropractic communication. He runs a thriving practice in Melbourne and is a past president of the Australian Spinal Research Foundation. A recognized expert in state-of-art chiropractic communication, Martin helps chiropractors worldwide articulate the value of chiropractic with confidence and clarity. He shares his insights through seminars, the Aligned Practice Development Group, and his podcast, Under the Influence. His contribution to the profession have earned him multiple international accolades. He is also an inaugural member of the Australasian College of Chiropractors. Martin's work is all about impact, helping chiropractors communicate more effectively so they can help more people. Dr. Martin, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me, Kelly.
We're excited to be diving deeper in terms of your expertise. First of all, can you share how did you got into the profession and also your journey in terms of understanding chiropractic communication and your journey to speaking in worldwide stage?
Wow. Okay. That's the whole arc. So I had sort of an interesting experience with chiropractic when I was a kid. So I grew up in Adelaide in South Australia, and my parents would go and see a chiropractor periodically, and we would sometimes go along with them, and sometimes we'd have care, but it was never really sort of explained to us exactly what chiropractic was about. But the kind of memory that I have of it was that we went to the chiropractor because it helped you stay well. And so in a way, it was kind of like, you know how people take vitamin C to sort of not get coughs and colds? To me, that's my memory of what chiropractic was it was this thing that stopped you getting coughs and colds. And I didn't really think I liked it, but I wasn't passionate about it. However, probably when I was really late in my high school, and this is an era, so we're talking like early 80s here. So the career counseling is very, very different to what my kids experienced when they were having career counseling sort of 10 years ago. It was pretty laissez-faire. There wasn't a lot of, and so I really decided I wanted to be a chiropractor because when I was late in my schooling, the chiropractor that we saw periodically had a young chiropractor join the practice, and I just thought he was really cool. And he got to, within a fairly short period of time, he got to have a day off in the middle of the week, and he went surfing, which has always been a high value of mine. And he had a pretty cool car. And so it was really, I decided to be a chiropractor, not really having very much of an idea about it at all, to be really honest. I guess for me, the next thing that was a bit pivotal was I got into chiropractic and I found the anatomy and the physiology and those sort of things just really interesting and fascinating. And I'd had a background of playing relatively high level sport. And so that part of it sort of appealed to me, that kind of about the human body and how it worked, that appealed to me. And then I guess the real pivot point came when I started being exposed to chiropractic philosophy. We would have people come and speak into our classes. So people in Australia would know, if you're in the chiropractic profession, people like John Kelly or Mark Uren or others of that sort of, John Hinwood, Phil Geary, a number of people who are very active in the chiropractic profession at the time, who sort of started to give me a bigger picture of it. And some friends of mine also started to bring people like Reggie Gold, who was, I guess, one of the preeminent chiropractic philosophers of all time. I got to hear Reggie Gold in a friend of mine's apartment where there's 12 of us crammed into the living room of a student house. And that really started to help me see the perspective that I'd had going into chiropractic, that it was kind of this vitamin C was very limited. The focus of when I'd been studying chiropractic, and there was a big emphasis on chiropractic as a way of helping people with back pain, neck pain, and headaches, that was also not the big picture. And so Reggie sort of, I guess, gave me language and a perspective around the big picture of chiropractic, that helping your body work at its absolute best sort of helps you do everything that's important to you better. And that was one of those ideas that I sort of looked at and thought, wow, that's really unique. And, we can be a really valuable service for people. And I guess, so that's, I guess, where we came to. Now, the next step that I think you asked was how did I get into a focus on communication? Is that right?
Yes, yes.
Okay, so I was super excited about chiropractic. And so I just thought, well, I've found the solution to everybody living a healthier, happier, more active life. And in my mind, what I needed to do to help people connect with that was I just needed to tell them what Reggie had told me in a way. And I did that for the latter stages of being a student. And then when I was first in practice, I was really attracted to these ideas that all we needed to do was kind of tell the story. If we told people about chiropractic, they'd see the logic in it and they'd choose to take it on. There was a bunch of other ideas that were sort of popular from speakers and those sort of things at the time. Ideas like if they knew what we know, they'd do what we do, sort of thing. And there was this whole idea of what we had to do was like just tell people chiropractic, and it really didn't matter what had motivated them to be interested in chiropractic or come to see me as a chiropractor once I'd started practice. My job was to tell them the chiropractic story. And to me, that turned me into what I would describe as a chiropractic arsehole, where I had zero interest or empathy in what your life was about and what was important to you and what you were hoping to achieve. I had my agenda, and it was almost this kind of quasi-religious thing. And I did that for a while. And I guess I'm lucky enough that I'm sensitive enough that the battle of trying to talk at people about something, I could just sense that it was awkward and uncomfortable, and they were disappointed in it. And every now and then you'd get somebody who really it gelled with, but for most people it was like, so what? And then that's what got me interested in communication. And I sort of had this realization, I guess, that there must be other people who have other ideas that they think are really helpful for people who are trying to help people understand them, that are doing a better job than I'm doing. And that, I guess, set me on the path of, well, what do other people do? And my practice at the time across the street was a bookshop. Actually, the bookshop's still there, even though my practice has moved. It's a really cool bookshop, and it's really curated. I went in there and I was sort of looking at the communication, personal development sort of area, and Cialdini's book Influence was there. And I can't really remember because this is going back, 30 years. I graduated in 91, and this would have been probably, I would say, I don't know, it was certainly early 90s that I started to be super interested in communication. And so I picked up the book and was like, yeah, wow, this makes a lot more sense, that people have these inner ways of seeing the world, of processing information, of looking at what's important, what information's relevant to them, and what is just distraction. And so I guess that started me on a journey that made me realize that, yes, we have a perspective that can be transformative to people. Yes, we have one of the most powerful interventions in an adjustment to help people's bodies work better, but the real meta skill that determines how much impact you have in the world, to me, is your ability to communicate the relevance and individualized value to people so that they can connect with it. They know that you care about them and that they can see why chiropractic might be valuable for them in terms of what's important to them in their lives.
Now, with your many years of experience and also reading, researching, what is one key difference you see in successful chiropractors than mediocre ones?
Yeah. Okay. One key difference, I think, would be starting with the client or patient's perspective first. So to me, mediocre chiropractors are passionate about chiropractic. They're internally focused. I want this. I believe this. Whereas I think really the most successful chiropractors I know are definite about the way that they can help people, and they're also then empathetic enough that they start with seeking to understand before seeking to be understood. So when they're interacting with somebody that they feel like chiropractic might be able to help, they take the time to listen first before communicating what value they can offer.
And what would you say is the key factors for communicating chiropractic or anything efficiently?
Okay, so I guess that there's a couple of ideas that I think are really important to communicate, and they start off with the idea that people are bombarded with information. So part of the reason that I think that a lot of chiropractic communication training and practice management coaching and those sort of things is, if I can be really direct, bullshit, is that it worked in a previous era and a completely different context. So the world has been through a series of revolutions. So the Industrial Revolution completely changes what works in that environment. So pre the Industrial Revolution, you could make money doing certain things that once the Industrial Revolution comes along, being a hand craftsman is no longer as valuable. But similarly, we've had the information revolution. So before the internet, you as a healthcare professional had a specific body of knowledge about the way the body worked and a perspective that was super valuable to people, because if people had a health challenge or they wanted to know how to improve their health or how to prevent problems or how to perform at their best, it was hard to get that information. You would have to go to the library and hope that the right book was there. And whereas now everybody has access to all of human knowledge via the device in their pocket. And so a lot of our communication approaches where we just try and tell people about chiropractic, they used to work because people were just trying to piece together information. Whereas now what we need to do is realize that most people are overwhelmed with information. So that was a really long way of answering that question. But the first thing that I would say is, first of all, you've got to be relevant to that person. So if you've got too much information coming in, like if you think of your social media feed or if you're looking on a website, 90% of what's there you're going to ignore because you won't see it as relevant or potentially valuable to you. And so similarly, when we lead with talking about us and about chiropractic, people already have enough information that they want stuff that's about them. And we want to make sure that we connect with their existing beliefs. So that's where the curiosity comes in, where if you're coming in to see me as a client, there's a couple of things that I want to know. What prompted you to come in? What was the reason for you coming in? Beyond that, I want to understand more about that. And in understanding what the process that had you come in, I want to understand what the important things are in your life. What are your lifestyle values? So what are the things that you have to do day to day? What are the things that you love to do? And if I can get an understanding of it, what are the things that really make Kelly Kelly? Like, what are the things that light you up, that are at the core of your identity? Because the better I understand them, the better able I am to communicate chiropractic's value to you. Because I would contend that chiropractic let's say the things that you were passionate about was weight training. You wanted to get as physique, you wanted to bodybuild as much as possible. I'm going to communicate the value of chiropractic to you in terms of dealing with any pain or problem that might have prompted you to come to see me, in terms of prevention and in terms of performance. We can help you pain prevention performance, but I'm going to communicate it differently to you than if you've got two kids under 5. The things that are really important to you is your capacity to have the energy and physical capacity to look after them at the highest level. So same process of chiropractic and the same framework of care, etc., but I'm going to use my understanding of you to make chiropractic relevant by putting it in terms of what's important to you.
I like this framework of yours. You always emphasize this pain prevention and then performance. So that's like a very structural step by step that people can follow and communicate chiropractic efficiently, more relevant to that person. So that's good that I'm hearing repetitive message that's honing it.
Good. Well, there's one other thing with that pain prevention performance, because there's other ways you could say that. Like you could say relief care, corrective care, and wellness care. The advantage, the reason that I like pain prevention performance is you want ideas to be sticky.
Yes.
And so there are things that have alliteration, like starting with the same letter. It's easier for people to remember. And so, yeah, that's partly why that happens. So all of the ideas that I guess I use to structure communication when I'm critical of other approaches that I think are just outdated and based on telling the story and those sort of things, it's not my opinion. It's just based on, there's a whole science of communication, the influence literature that exists that says, look, there's certain ways that you can choose to craft your message that are just much more aligned with the way that people take information on. And to me, it's crazy not to use that. Like if this idea, if you really do feel passionately, like I do, and I know you do too, that chiropractic is one of the most important ideas that the world can better understand, and it's going to help everybody if we do that, then we need to have the, I guess, sort of reverence for that by using what the best approaches are rather than, I sort of feel like sometimes in chiropractic we have this idea that, well, if you're not talking about chiropractic, you're dumbing it down and watering it down. And I just think, well, no, you've got to actually be reverent to chiropractic. You've got to make it important to people, which means you've got to translate it.
Yes, explain it so that a 5-year-old can understand it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Going along the lines of that, what is one challenge you see in chiropractic or even chiropractors in general at the moment, or the same issue you've been seeing the last 100 years?
Yeah, okay. I think the biggest challenge that we have is that beliefs about health, all beliefs are difficult to change. The majority of people have what I would describe as a pain or problem level of health belief, where they genuinely believe that you can tell how healthy you are by how you feel, that the time that you should take action about your health, the time you should go and see a healthcare provider is when you feel symptoms. And what that means is that most people have way crappier health than they would otherwise have. Like if people are more proactive with their health to prevent problems, or even more higher than that, if you have a performance level of health awareness, it's not that you are necessarily trying to be an athlete, but you're adopting the mindset of an athlete and saying, how can I care for this body at its highest level? Because that's going to help me not only prevent problems, but it's going to help me do everything at a better level. So the biggest obstacle or challenge that we have as chiropractors is that it's difficult to change beliefs. Beliefs are a little bit embedded, and the approach that we have where we tell people they're wrong for what they believe tends to embed those beliefs, whereas we need to have a more sophisticated skill set if we want to help people move along that continuum to a prevention level of health awareness and a performance level of health awareness.
What would be a message that you would like everyone to understand if you have a microphone that's conveying message to worldwide, one message that you can say to people so that they can understand chiropractic or understand health or understand life in general?
Yeah. So can I get two statements if they
Sure,
link together?
okay.
Okay.
You win the
If I get two,
negotiation.
all right. So I think there's two things. First of all, you only get one body.
Okay.
You can't get a replacement. You're only going to get one. And how well it works is going to influence everything that you do. And so you put those two things together and it just pays to really look after your body. And so a big part of looking after your body proactively is chiropractic. And there are other things, like you can't just get adjusted and then eat garbage. You can't just get adjusted and not do any exercise. You can't just get adjusted and not have some process of proactively looking after your mental health. So, but at the core of it, it's this idea of you only get one body, and how well it's working is going to influence you today, and it's going to influence how well you live in the future as well.
I like how before you say your statement, you negotiated two statements. So influencing me there, as you can see. Right. I'm going to challenge you now as a successful chiropractor. Take me back to the most life-changing conversation you ever had. What is the greatest advice you received in your career?
Okay. Can I have two?
Again?
Yeah, I'm
I
pushing
didn't say
it.
once. Yeah,
Well,
what's
I
the
guess
greatest advice?
okay, so there are two things that I don't know that they were necessarily advice, but two moments when I realized things that I think were really, really important. And the first one was, and in a way, they sort of emphasize slightly different points, but the first one was that perspective that I got when I heard Reggie Gold kind of outline that how your body works influences everything that you do. And the way that Reggie has this thing called Reggie's N, which I can't actually remember the individual steps of it, but it's not important. But it's a really simple way of mapping out that how every single aspect of this complex symphony of physiology that makes up your body works is controlled and coordinated by your nervous system, and that having a nervous system that's functioning 1% better, 5% better, 10% better is going to allow everything to work just that little bit better, but that has ripples and affects everything of your body. So we've sort of spoken a bit about that in a way that woke me up to just how big chiropractic was and had the unintended consequence of making me use communication approaches that were very much about me trying to tell people about chiropractic rather than understand them and then translate chiropractic into a language that made sense given what they already thought was important. The second thing that happened was fairly early on when I was in practice, and it was around the time that I was realizing that being me just telling people the story wasn't really as impactful as it could have been. I was in the middle of practice and there was a guy, I'll never forget, his name's Tony, who said to me after I'd adjusted him, he was about to move to Sydney and this was going to be our last visit. And I liked him. He was a pleasant enough guy, but I didn't have this sense of a real connection to him or this, you know how there's some people in practice where you're like, oh, wow, that person really gets the big picture of chiropractic. I just didn't have that. I'd organised for him to see a chiropractor in Sydney and it was sort of like, yeah, lovely to know you. Good luck with the move. I'll see you later. And he said, look, would it be okay if we just shut the door and if I can just talk for a few minutes? And I'm like, yeah, sure. But it sort of feel like, well, I hope I haven't offended him or something. And he was like, I just wanted to say thank you so much for everything that you've done. I didn't ever tell you this, but I'd come in to see you for headaches and I'd sort of forgotten. It had been so long since we'd sort of had that initial thing. I hadn't forgotten. He said, and they were just taking over my life so much that I decided that if this wasn't a solution, then I was going to kill myself, that it was just taking over my life. And it was one of those moments of just like, how it spoke to me a lot in terms of chiropractic. Because we're excited about the performance level, sometimes we poo-poo the level of impact we can have people at a pain level. So there was partly that. There was also just that moment of, wow, I really missed it. Like I really hadn't had the curiosity or empathy or whatever it was in terms of the way that I had done that initial process to really understand how big a problem this was for Tony. Like I'd just gone through that almost sort of diagnostic process of where's your headache? What's it feel like? What makes it better? What makes it worse? All right, here's the program that we need to do to deal with that and blah, 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 blah. But it had been very transactional and that was a real wake up call for me and to me, those couple of experiences have made me or helped me see chiropractic in a way where I look at it and I go, it's about the people that you're serving and it's about understanding what's going on for them. And it's not about rushing to a performance level of health that's we've got to get to that straight away and dismiss the potential chiropractic has at a problem level. It's about having the empathy and the understanding to really ask the questions and the patience to have people tell you what it's really like for them. And then in doing that, you kind of earn the right to explain what chiropractic can do to help them with what their priorities are right now and the option of taking it further if they want. And so to me, those couple of experiences are probably the ones that I look at and go, there are a lot of other things and a lot of other people, a lot of other influences that have helped along the way, but they were moments where I went, whoa, hang on, that's a real pivotal moment.
How are you trying to connect with people now? Is there anything that you do before you connect people or any like framework you do so they can connect to
Yeah.
people better?
Yeah. So again, I guess there's the big picture that you want to make it important. And the challenge that you have with that connection with people is that we've got a lot of other plates spinning when we're in our practice, that we've got the clinical care that requires focus and concentration to do really well. And we've got to do it efficiently. And we've got the other concerns in our life about, just stuff. So to me, it's prioritizing it. So I will make sure that the way that we do our visit structure, whether it's a first visit or second visit or a adjustment visit, every single visit, the first thing that we do is we make sure that we are creating a connection with people. And if you understand communication, if you understand evolutionary psychology, connection can happen really, really fast, provided it's right at the beginning of something. And there are techniques or there are approaches, if you prioritize it, that create a sense of connection really quickly. So eye contact, using people's names, using touch in an intentional way, not a clinical way, as the first moment of just taking that little couple of seconds at the beginning of every interaction, make sure that you've connected with the person as a person before you connect with them as a client or a patient. That's probably the most important. Now, there's a lot of techniques that you can use, but having almost like that routine of every time somebody comes in to see me, I make sure that, yes, I've just seen another 5, 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 people before them. However, you just have that little reset of I'm connecting with you as an individual, and then we're going into chiropractic. And coupled with that, the communication, you can do the opposite of in that individualized connection, which is using really generic ways of connecting with people. People know when stuff is generic. Like if people have statements that it's just about chiropractic, and it's clear that you have like it's visit 3, so the curriculum says we're going to be talking about blah, 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 blah. That doesn't make you feel like you're a special person. It makes you feel like, oh, I'm a cog in this machine that you need to work through. So I sort of look at it, prioritizing connection at the beginning and prioritizing connection by individualizing things. And there's ways that you can make that happen at scale. There's ways that you can make that happen when you're seeing a lot of people and seeing people, in an efficient way. It just that you have to prioritize it.
What would be one thing that you like to advise younger Martin?
Okay. So younger Martin, I would say, yeah, I mean, I sort of feel like the obvious one is the one that we've been sort of talking about it, which is start with seeking to understand before you seek to be understood. That would be the number one. Yeah, I feel like that's the core thing, that because we're insecure when we start, which is understandable. Everybody has that sort of imposter syndrome, that bit of what, am I good at this? Is chiropractic going to really help this person? Am I a good version of chiropractic? So, and that self-awareness, I think, can be a really good thing. However, our intuitive response to that insecurity is almost to sort of, all right, I've got to impress them with what I know and who, those sort of things. Whereas I feel like actually the reverse of it is actually more impressive to people. Like if you just get good at being curious and get good at asking questions about that are just sort of simple, like, what made you decide to come and see me now? If you're doing let's say, it's early in your career and you're doing a screening, like, well, I'm sort of curious what made you come over and have a look at it. Just that, rather than let me tell you what we're here for and what the offer is. It's like let's understand you first. So I guess that the behavioral thing of that mindset perspective of curiosity, it starts with them, is the behavior is you ask questions, and you ask questions about, what's it like for you? What does this feel like? What's it stopping you doing? What would you like to do? What would success look like? All those sort of things of just, all right, I'm going to impress this person more by understanding them better, rather than me having some snappy thing to say about how cool what I do is.
That's good. What sort of books and resources that you like to recommend to people, like the number one book or 3 or
Okay.
2? How many books you like to recommend to people that you usually recommend?
Okay. All right. So from a health perspective, I feel like Spark by John Ratey is a really good book to just look at nervous system and how much of an impact it has on every aspect of your life. It's an older book. It must have been out for more than 20 years. And it talks mainly in terms of exercise, but the understanding that we have in terms of the way the nervous system works and afferent input works, it's just a really useful model to, oh, wow, yeah, this nervous system's kind of important. From a communication perspective, I mentioned Influence by Cialdini as sort of the classic book. It's a really, really good book. Having said that, I would say that there's 2 other books that I would now recommend that people read before Influence. Not that they're better than Influence, but in a lot of ways, I feel like they're more accessible and they give you a toolkit that probably is more immediately impactful. And one is called Influence is Your Superpower by Zoe Zoe Chance, which I think she's got a really interesting thing. So Cialdini is an academic, like he consults to companies, but he's mainly worked in academic institutions. Zoe Chance worked in marketing before she then became a behavioral economist. So I sort of feel like she started with an orientation and an empathy for consumers and clients, and she really leans in a lot to the idea that trying to manipulate people with your communication is a recipe for disaster. That that people are really well attuned to your intentions. So you've got to have the right intent, and then these techniques will work really, really well. And the other book that I would say is probably, if it would be the next one after that, would be To Sell is Human by Daniel Pink. I just think it's a really well written book about communication. I think the title of it is it's sort of in that era of, came out in that same era of really, we'll try and get your attention by having a slightly controversial title. So it sort of is this idea that, and a lot of people feel uncomfortable with, I don't want to sell people on something. I want to present them with, and his whole concept of selling is, well, selling is just influencing people to give up something for something else, to influence their behavior. So it's not as sleazy as the title makes it sound. It's actually a really good book about ethically influencing people to make better quality decisions for them.
It's a really great list that you have there. We'll add all the details below. Well, coming towards the end of our conversation, I know we just started blasting things, but before we end the recording, obviously we're going to leave all informations. Your podcast would be one of the number one podcasts in terms of learning communication. I learned so much from your podcast also. You have the seminar, we add it into the description below. And also, before we end the recording, will be one statement. Now, this will be only one statement, one sentence,
Okay, only
one quote
one.
you'll have
Okay.
to end the conversation to leave the listeners to.
Okay, one statement.
Yeah.
Yeah. I guess I would just say you're only going to get one life and one body. You might as well squeeze the most out of it.
That's really a great way to end a conversation. Thank you so much for sharing your story, your knowledge, your expertise with us today, Martin. And we'll hopefully catch up real soon in your seminar or your next podcast also.
Excellent. Thanks so much, Kelly. I appreciate it.
Thank you for tuning in to the Life of Being podcast. Let us know what is your one key takeaway from this episode. And if this conversation inspired you, share it with a friend who might find it helpful today. Until next time, take care of your health and take care of your being.